episode 39 of the BioBalance Healthcast. I'm Dr. Kathy Maupin.
And I'm Brett Newcomb. And today we're talking about competitive products that are marketed on television and on the internet to compare with hormone replacement therapies. And there's a lot of stuff that you see or you get ads about, and they don't ever say what they are, they don't ever say what they do, but they have these smiling, glowing people that say, oh, I took this pill and my God, am I better? Is my life just more enhanced? And it's wonderful, and you can have it too, and we'll send you a 30-day free trial.
And they don't.
And they don't.
That you eventually somehow have to pay for that and for the shipping, which is almost more than the product. But what we're talking about is the quality of these types of supplements. First of all, I like natural products. I use DIM, which is a natural food type product. I use herbal products like saw palmetto for decreasing DHT. I use a lot of natural products, but I only use products that are made in the United States and are controlled by the FDA. Okay, but everything you see on the internet in general is not really controlled by the FDA, and a lot of it is not made in the United States, which is huge.
Right.
Because a lot of it's made in China, where the cleanliness standards and the content standards are very low. If you saw where they were made, you would be horrified, and you would never take that kind of a
I'm really glad to hear
product.
you say that, because over the years of doing therapy, I've had a lot of clients come in who have been resistant to the idea of taking medicines like antidepressants.
Right.
And they say, I don't want a prescription, I don't want to take a medicine, I don't want to start down that road because you can never come off of it. And so instead, I take herbal remedies. I take things like St. John's wort, which there's a lot of documentation that says that is helpful.
Yeah.
Exactly. But the issue with those kinds of ingredients is standardization, consistency, regulation, accessibility of someone to talk to at the company to say what's in this, or this didn't work this time but it worked last time, what's going on.
They
you get
really
batch
should.
inconsistency,
Right.
you get
really,
content
if
inconsistency.
they're made here, the FDA kind of oversees them a little bit, but in general, there's a lot more leeway on that. But when you get to RXs, when you get to a prescription,
Right.
then there's a lot of regulation. Like my bioidentical hormone pellets are regulated. Everybody thinks it's just, you go to the store and you get an herbal product, but it's pure testosterone, pure estrogen, estradiol, made from soy and yams. It's natural because it's made from a plant and it's compounded. It's not made in a factory. It's made by a pharmacist. So those are the differences with normal pharmaceuticals. But in general, it's very well regulated by the FDA, and they come in and check out the pharmacies all the time, make sure what's in.
The pharmacist is regulated, the pharmacist is licensed, they're educated to American standards.
It's very, very clean, very clean. Just like if you got a pharmaceutical from your pharmacist at the grocery store or the drugstore. So in that way, it's regulated. Where we have trouble is where we get nutritional supplements. Those are really not regulated so much by the FDA. They don't have time to do everything. So when you look at something and go, I want to take that, like Ageless Male. I had somebody ask me about that.
Ageless
So
Male.
we actually investigated. I never really looked at what was in it because I didn't have that many patients that came in and asked me about it. So when I did, I found out the biggest issue was it was made in China. And all it had in it was saw palmetto, which is much cheaper than Ageless Male.
As saw palmetto.
As saw palmetto.
Right.
So you could take that and an American-made saw palmetto and a clean
production
type
system with quantified ingredients that are consistently measured and
Right.
made to a standard in the United States.
And I don't mean to be picking on Ageless Male because it's just the one that my patient asked me about. I'm not taking them on. But when I looked them up on the internet, there was no one to really call about it, to ask about it, and it did state that it was made in China, and that it did have saw palmetto, and that was its major active ingredient. So,
But it also identified another ingredient that was proprietary. It's a made-up name. They register a name and say, this is what we're going to call this product. And you have difficulty finding out what that ingredient is.
Right, it was a Chinese herb that I couldn't find. So I'm not sure if you have to live in China to find information about it, or if you have to have a book that I don't have or the internet that I don't have. But I have the internet, but
Right.
this wasn't in it. So I think you have to really look at these different things. What's in it, if you can find what's in it, and be careful with proprietary formulas, but then also where it's made, and if you can find somebody to talk to about it. Now, in contrast, Amberen is actually over the counter. It's not a prescription. And Amberen is a product that is controlled and actually does do one of the 5 things or 6 things that it promises to do. Okay. Amberen is used for hot flashes, and it is not a supplement or used to be substituted instead of estrogen. But they show all of the advertising, they say, is instead of estrogen. You don't have to take estrogen. You can take this product and all of your ills will be gone.
If you get down into the weeds of the claim that they're making, what they're saying is you don't have to do all that in order to get rid of hot flashes.
Right.
But not necessarily to address the other issues that exist.
It doesn't strengthen your bones. It doesn't. It doesn't make you feel younger, look younger. It doesn't cause you to have a moist vagina so you don't have painful intercourse. It doesn't do any of those things. So when you look at these, you have to look at their claims. But I have some patients who have used it, and they have gotten nothing but the relief from the hot flashes. And they were very unhappy. In fact, those are people who have used it ahead of time before they've come to see me.
Well, and the critical ingredient in Amberen is MSG.
Right, and MSG is what's in Chinese food, Japanese food.
Just go to a Chinese restaurant, you won't have hot flashes.
That's right, you won't have hot flashes. No, actually, and that's not really
That's not true.
But it does give people migraines. And if you don't read that and you have migraines, you're going to get a whopper migraine from Amberen. And that's on their testimonials. There's a lot of complaints about that. And in general, estradiol and testosterone actually kind of protect you from that if they have a steady dose. So this will make that worse, and that's a big fact in terms of making your decision.
So we're talking about supplements and medicines, that some of which are prescription, some of which are not prescription, and we're talking about, at least Kathy's making the important distinction about medicines or supplements that are regulated in their manufacture and distribution by the Food and Drug Administration and made to American health standards, as opposed to imported from overseas. And you never really know what you're getting when you import things overseas, from overseas, because they don't regulate it in the same way, and you don't always know the information, like the proprietary formula. They have some fancy name that sounds good, but you don't know what it is, and you can't find out what's in it. You were telling me off camera a story about one of the patients that came into your office and talked to your nurse that had bought a product from China in order to lose weight.
Right, and it was billed as a weight loss medication. And it did in fact make her lose weight, but here's the caveat. She had gone directly to this corporation in China to send it to her. It didn't go through any American corporation, so she had no recourse. But she took these pills as directed. She didn't really look at what was in them, but it wasn't really written in English. It was written in Chinese. And she
the assembly directions you get on some of them.
Yeah, but it said take 1 a day or something like that with a lot of water. So she took it, and then all of a sudden, here's how I found out about it. She came in with a jar, and in the jar was stool. This isn't very pretty, but was stool, and in it were all these worms swimming around. That she had gotten these worms from eggs that then were in the
pill
diet
or the tablet,
and that's how you lose weight. You get an infestation of worms that take away your nutrition.
Eat the nutrients so that you lose weight.
Her hair was falling out. Yeah, she lost weight.
And then you don't know what the worms are, so you don't know how to get rid of them.
That's right, and they're not American kind of tapeworms or hookworms. They're, you go to your GI doctor to get rid of them, and they're like, what is this? I've never seen this before. That's not a good thing. So it took her a lot of time, effort, drugs, and everything else to get rid of this, and that's about the worst. That's about the worst story I've got.
Well, and what we want to say is you're seeing shock reaction about the circumstances that created it. It's not about this poor woman. I mean, this poor woman lost weight, but had the issues that she had and the fear that she had about what do I have now.
Well, we're trusting. Americans are very trusting, and since we do have an agency like the FDA watching over us,
we assume everybody does.
We assume every country does, and so that we're going to get clean, safe, not worm-infested things that we can take and make us better. So in that way, we just we don't even read things anymore. We just buy them because we rarely get anything that's going to hurt us in our food or in our supplements in this country. But
well, and we get marketed for so many things in so many ways that the marketing is not regulated. I mean, you see marketing strategies for alternatives to things like Viagra or Cialis. And they say, well, you don't have to pay $18, $20 a pill. You can get it for $2 if you buy it from overseas, wherever overseas may be. And they'll ship you job lots of those things for a very inexpensive cost. And so you consider, well, gosh, that's cheaper if it's the same, if it works the same way. Why wouldn't I use it?
Right.
Well, one of the reasons that you wouldn't use it is it might have worms.
Or it may just not
else.
work. What are you going to do if there's no
Yeah.
phone number on it, and if you can't, there's no contact ability, how can you even complain to them?
Yeah.
You have to look for those things. If they have somebody behind it in the U.S., then generally you can complain. You know, you have to have a phone number on every website from which you order things for this type of thing. But I don't want to make anyone think that I am against vitamins and supplements. My mom basically, we never had drugs in the house. Maybe I became a doctor because of that, but just in spite of her. But we had all herbs and honey and natural honey, you know, not pasteurized, but real honey that we used to solve all kinds of problems. We didn't use medications. So I'm very on board with that. I'm also on board with medicine when it's necessary. But I just don't want patients or any of you out there to get something that you didn't count on and have more of a problem, but besides it not being effective, but have more of a problem or a side effect than you ever anticipated by buying it through the internet.
Well, and we also don't have an investment in one product over another. You have an investment in the care for your patients and the regulation of the ingredients that you use that you buy from a standard source. I mean, you're very careful about doing the work to make sure that you're buying quality products from quality people and that you know what they do. But there are other places to get a lot of these things. And so the points that we want to make to you as you consider, you look at ads on TV or you look at things in the internet or you get a blast email that goes to everybody in the world and says, oh, we have this product, why don't you try it? There are certain points to consider. One is, where is this product made? And is it made in a country where sanitation rules and regulation rules for production and for ingredient control are standardized and monitored? What else do you want them to know?
Well, the last one is my favorite commercial.
Yeah.
Enzyte. Enzyte. The Enzyte commercial has everybody has a big smile. You know, this is supposed to make your wife happy because it's better than Viagra. Well, in reality, that's saw palmetto as well. Well, and you know, saw palmetto is pretty cheap.
You make the point. A lot of times these things are established, known ingredients that they buy in bulk, rename, put a proprietary name on it, and sell it as something else.
And they market it with great success because really, saw palmetto does work a little bit because it decreases your DHT. So it does release more of men's testosterone so that they can be more effective. If you have a real problem, it's not going to work. But they may feel a little different, but it doesn't do what they say it's going to do unless you have a minor problem. If you have a big problem, you need to have your testosterone replaced.
Well, and you need to be a little aware of the way that marketers use language. When they say something is almost as good as new, that means somebody somewhere had one beneficial result or more. It doesn't mean everybody that takes it.
And when we're speaking, we don't speak like that about what we do.
No, we're very careful not to.
We're very careful not to, and most physicians know that they can't claim something that is not true. We're basically based on a truthful, we take an oath, we have to tell the truth, so that's what we do.
So it's truthful, it's measured, it's regulated, it's sanitary, it's consistent. Those are things that you want to ask as you look at other options that you might be considering. So if you have questions about that or comments about this podcast or any others, you can email us at podcast@biobalancehealth.com. You can read my blog at brettnewcomb.com and contact me through that.
And if you'd like to know more about BioBalance Health or bioidentical hormones, visit our website, biobalancehealth.com, or call 314-993-0963.